The night sky over the alien moon Varelia shimmered like a glass ocean. Towers of crystal hummed softly, glowing in colors that breathed like living light. For the Varelians, silence was sacred. Every vibration, every whisper, every note had meaning. To them, sound was life itself, and too much of it could destroy balance. That was why Lyra always walked gently, her bare feet gliding over smooth, cold stone floors, her long silver ears twitching to even the faintest hum in the air. But tonight something broke that peace. It started as a faint pulse, a trembling wave that came from the night sky, sharp and strange. The hum of the towers faltered, and a few crystal panels flickered in warning. Lyra froze, her heart jumping. Her hearing was sharper than most, and this sound was not from her world. It came from above the atmosphere, an alien rhythm, heavy and fast like thunder trapped inside metal walls. She covered her ears. The pulse grew stronger, vibrating through her bones. Her translator device blinked red as it tried to process the unknown signal. Words scrolled across its small screen. Source unknown. Frequency, human. Transmission. Type, music. Music. Lyra frowned. The council had warned about human transmissions before. Their sounds were chaotic, full of distortion and wild rhythm, waves that could damage Varelian hearing. The teachers called it noise, dangerous to their calm minds. Yet as the pulse continued, something in it caught her attention. Beneath the crashing of drums and the roaring of strange instruments, she felt heartbeats, real ones, rhythmic, alive. She took a deep breath and opened her sound filters slightly, letting more of the alien music flow into her ears. The translator glowed, picking up words now. Harsh, growling, fast-spoken words, but not evil. The song spoke of rising, of falling, of standing up again. Lyra couldn't understand all the words, but the emotion behind them hit her like a wave. Her eyes widened. For the first time in her quiet life, she felt something wild move inside her, excitement mixed with fear. Suddenly, a loud crackle filled the air and the broadcast cut off. The sky returned to silence, but her heart did not. It was beating in rhythm to the vanished sound. She looked up at the stars, her fingers trembling. "What was that?" she whispered to herself. By morning, the towers buzzed with gossip. Other Varelians had heard the strange sound too. The council declared it an audio invasion, a violation of peace laws. They said a human cargo ship had passed near orbit, and its captain was transmitting forbidden Earth signals. The ship was to be warned, maybe even detained, but Lyra couldn't forget the rhythm. When she closed her eyes, she still felt it echoing in her veins. She found herself tapping her fingers on the table during breakfast, something no proper Varelian ever did. Her mother noticed and frowned. "You still feel the tremor?" she asked quietly. "You must not let it stay in your mind, Lyra. Noise is poison." Lyra nodded, but she was lying. That night she couldn't sleep. The stars outside her window glittered like notes waiting to be played. And then, she made a decision. She walked to the communication tower alone. The corridors were empty. She activated the long-range scanner and searched for the same frequency that had played before. The signal was faint now, almost gone, but she traced it toward a ship hovering near the ice belt. A human ship. Its name flashed on her display, Marrow's Rust. Her curiosity burned stronger than fear. She needed to see the being who could create such powerful sound. What kind of creature would dare use noise as music? What kind of mind found peace in thunder? She wrapped her long cloak tightly around her and left a message crystal on her desk for her mother. "I'm going to understand the sound." Then she slipped into a hover shuttle, whispering the coordinates to the ship's AI. As she flew through the dark sky, stars streaking past her, the old broadcast replayed in her head. The more she remembered, the more she wanted to hear it again. The beats, the guitar strings, the energy. It all felt like life breaking through walls. Her shuttle entered the human ship's scanner range. She could see it now, old, dented, with strange metal patterns and bright lights painted in random shapes. It looked nothing like the elegant crystal ships of Varelia. This one was messy, rough, and alive. As her shuttle docked silently near one of its maintenance ports, the music started again, faint but real. She pressed her hands against the hull and the metal vibrated with the rhythm. The translator whispered, "Hard rock, Earth genre." Her pulse quickened. She was about to meet the human who made the stars themselves tremble with noise. And deep inside, without understanding why, Lyra smiled. She didn't yet know that this noise would change her life forever, or that soon the entire galaxy would listen to her story. The human ship was nothing like Lyra had imagined. It was old and messy, with half the lights flickering and a faint smell of burned wires in the air. The floor hummed under her feet as the engine struggled to keep power steady. She stepped carefully through the narrow hallway, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her translator picked up faint music coming from deeper inside the ship, soft and rough at the same time. It made her heart jump. She followed the sound. It led her to a small room filled with strange human objects. Metal strings stretched across wooden shapes, black boxes with blinking lights, and wires hanging like vines. At the center sat a man, his back turned, tapping his foot as he played a guitar. His brown hair was messy, and he wore a jacket covered in patches and oil stains. The sound coming from his hands was wild but warm. It filled the air with something alive, something real. Lyra froze at the doorway, not daring to breathe. Her ears twitched at every vibration. Her world had always been controlled, quiet, balanced. But this sound was unchained, like wind in a storm. She felt her heart beating with the rhythm, matching the pulse of his guitar. Then he noticed her. The man stopped playing. He turned around quickly, surprised. His eyes widened when he saw her, tall, graceful, with glowing silver skin and long, curved ears. "Whoa," he said, blinking. "You're not one of the station inspectors." Lyra tried to speak, but her translator buzzed before finding the right words. I heard your sound," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I thought it was a weapon." The man laughed, a deep and friendly sound. "A weapon?" "Nah," he said, lifting the guitar. "This is a guitar. I play it when the engines go bad or when I can't sleep." She tilted her head. "You use noise to rest?" He grinned. "You could say that." "Name's Jack Marrow. Pilot, mechanic, and part-time musician. You?" "Lyra," she answered quietly. "From Virelia." Jack's eyebrows rose. "The Silent Moon? No kidding. You guys hate noise, right? Guess I'm the last human you'd want to meet." She looked around, her eyes scanning the strange instruments. "Your sound. It was strong. It made me feel something, not pain. Something else," Jack smiled gently. "That's the idea. Music's not supposed to hurt. It's supposed to make you feel alive." Lyra stepped closer, drawn to the instrument. The guitar's wooden surface glowed under the ship lights. She reached out but stopped her hand in midair. Jack nodded encouragingly. "Go ahead. It won't bite." Her fingers brushed the strings. A sharp metallic note echoed through the room, and she flinched, pulling back. But the sound lingered, beautiful and haunting. Jack chuckled softly. "Not bad. You just played your first note." She blinked. "It sounds powerful." "Because it is," Jack said. He placed his hands over hers carefully, showing her how to hold the guitar. Each sound carries emotion. Anger, joy, fear, hope, all of it. Humans put their hearts into noise. Lyra stared at him. "You shape chaos into meaning." "Exactly," he said, smiling wider. "We call it music." For the next few hours, they sat together. Jack showed her how to strum gently, how to listen to the vibration instead of fearing it. Lyra listened carefully, repeating his actions. Her fingers trembled at first, then grew steady. When she played a soft rhythm by herself, Jack leaned back, impressed. "You learn fast," he said. "I understand it," she whispered. "The rhythm matches life. The pulse of the heart. The hum of stars." Jack's smile faded slightly. "You sound more human than most humans I know." But before Lyra could reply, a sharp alarm rang through the ship. Jack jumped up and ran to the control panel. "Damn it," he muttered. "Virelian patrol ships. Looks like someone reported your little trip." Lyra's chest tightened. "They'll destroy your ship if they find me." Jack shook his head. "They'll have to catch me first." He grabbed his jacket and threw her a headset. "Put this on, it'll protect your ears when things get loud." "What do you mean, loud?" she asked nervously. He grinned, turning the volume knob on a nearby speaker. "Let's give them a proper welcome." The engines roared to life. The music blasted again, louder this time, fierce and wild. Lyra gasped as her whole body vibrated with the rhythm. The patrol scanners outside flickered, confused by the sudden sound waves. Jack laughed, steering the ship through a field of glowing ice rocks, the music echoing like thunder. Lyra held onto the seat, her heart racing. She had never felt so alive, so awake, so free. The noise that once terrified her now filled her with strength. As they escaped into the darkness of space, she looked at Jack, smiling for the first time. Your sound didn't destroy my ears, she said softly. It destroyed my fear. Jack turned down the music, grinning. Then you're starting to get it, kid. And for the first time, silence didn't feel like peace anymore. It felt empty, waiting for the next song. The next day began with quiet hums of the ship and the faint echo of yesterday's song still in Lyra's mind. The human ship drifted between silver clouds of dust, half broken but alive. Jack was fixing a power coil near the engine, humming a tune under his breath. Every hum had a pulse, a beat, and Lyra found herself moving to it without realizing. Her fingers tapped the metal wall softly, not out of control this time, but in rhythm. Jack noticed and grinned. You're catching the groove, huh? He said, wiping his hands on a cloth. I don't know what a groove is, she said, but I can feel it. That's what matters, Jack replied. You don't think about rhythm, you let it move you. He motioned toward the small room where the instruments waited. Come on, class is back in session. Inside the music room, Lyra sat carefully, holding the guitar he had lent her. The strings still felt strange under her thin fingers, but not scary anymore. Jack adjusted the small translator chip near her ear. This'll help you understand lyrics, he said, but you gotta feel the emotion yourself. He started to play a slow song this time. Soft, calm, like water flowing. Lyra closed her eyes, and for a moment she saw her home world again. The glass towers and the quiet lakes. The sound fit perfectly. This, she whispered. This doesn't hurt at all. Different kind of song, Jack said. Rock's wild, but there's beauty in soft ones too. Every note has a soul. She looked at him curiously. Humans give sound souls? Yeah, Jack said, smiling faintly. Guess we just hate silence too much. They played together for hours. Lyra's timing was off, but she laughed each time she missed a note. Her laughter was bright and musical itself, filling the room with warmth. Jack couldn't help smiling at her joy. He had met dozens of species, but none had ever listened like she did. To her, every sound mattered, even the small mistakes. Later, they sat on the floor eating ration cubes and drinking recycled water. Lyra's translator buzzed softly. Why do you play when no one listens? She asked, tilting her head. Jack looked up at the stars through the viewport. Because sometimes the stars are listening, he said quietly. When I was a kid, Earth was too loud. Cities, machines, arguments. Music was the only thing that made sense. Out here, it reminds me I'm still human. Lyra thought for a long time. On Virelia, silence is our god, she said. But I think silence can also hide fear. Jack looked at her in surprise. You're deeper than you look, Lyra. She smiled shyly. You humans make me think too much. As they talked, an alarm beeped faintly on the console. Jack frowned, checking the screen. Virelian patrols again, he muttered. They've traced your shuttle signal. Lyra's face paled. If they find me with you, they'll call it contamination, she said. You could be punished. Jack shrugged. Guess I'll just play louder, he said with a grin. But deep down he knew it was serious. He turned off most of the external lights to stay hidden in the asteroid field. Lyra stayed near the window, watching the blue patrol ships glide across the darkness like silent sharks. Her heart pounded. They'll destroy you, she whispered. They think humans use sound to control minds. Jack laughed softly. They're not completely wrong. Music does control minds. It just does it kindly. She turned toward him, her silver eyes wide. What if they make me go back? They'll erase this from my memory. Jack hesitated, then picked up his guitar. Then let's make something too loud for them to erase, he said. Something that belongs to both of us. He handed her the second guitar. Together they began to play. Slowly at first, then stronger, the rhythm growing, the tones merging. The crystal echo of her translator and the deep strum of his strings formed something new. It wasn't Earth's music or Virelian hums. It was both. The air vibrated like living light. The ship's sensors recorded waves never seen before. Human electric sound fused with alien resonance. It traveled beyond the hull, through the asteroid dust, bouncing off stones, carrying their song into space. Lyra felt her whole body glow faintly, her voice rising without fear. She began to sing, not words but sounds that danced with Jack's chords. He looked at her in awe. "That's it," he whispered. "You're making harmony." She laughed through the music. "It feels like I'm flying. You are," Jack said softly. "That's what music does." For a few minutes there was no silence, no fear, no difference between them. Just sound, pure and powerful, stretching across the stars. When they stopped, breathless, the control screen blinked. The patrol ships had turned away, confused by the strange signal. Jack exhaled with relief. "Guess they didn't like our song," he joked. But Lyra shook her head, smiling. "No," she said quietly. "They heard it. They just didn't understand it yet." Jack looked at her for a long moment. "You know, kid," he said softly, "you might be the best duet partner I've ever had." She smiled back. "And you might be the first human who made a Varelian love noise." They both laughed. Somewhere deep inside the ship, the guitar strings still trembled, as if remembering the melody of two worlds. The stars outside flickered as the human ship drifted closer to the Varelian border zone. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, clutching the guitar Jack had given her. The strings hummed softly under her touch like they were alive. She could feel the rhythm of the universe in them, the pulse of something new, something that didn't belong to just one world anymore. But peace never lasted long in space. A warning light flashed red across the console. Jack leaned forward and cursed under his breath. "Varelian patrols, 3 ships incoming," he said, his voice steady but tense. Lyra's chest tightened. She could already hear their piercing communication tones, sharp, perfect, and cold. To her, those sounds once meant safety. Now they sounded like chains. "They're hailing us," Jack said, switching the comm link on. The message came through instantly, spoken in flawless Varelian. "Human pilot, you are harboring a citizen of Varelia. Power down your engines and surrender. Sound pollution is forbidden within the silence zone. Compliance will be rewarded with mercy." Jack smirked. "Polite, aren't they?" Lyra swallowed hard. "If you fight them, they'll destroy you," she whispered. "Please, let me speak." He nodded once. She pressed the button and leaned toward the mic. "This is Lyra of House Arundel," she said, her voice calm but trembling. "I am unharmed. I came here by choice. The human has done nothing wrong." The voice on the other end stiffened. "By choice? You have been corrupted, Lyra. The sound has infected you. Come home before your mind collapses." Lyra felt anger rise in her chest, a deep vibration that matched the low hum of the ship. "I am not infected," she said sharply. "I am awake." Jack's eyes flicked toward her, a proud grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. The patrol ships began to move closer, their engines glowing in perfect synchronization. Their silence was eerie, absolute. It pressed against the hull like a heavy blanket, choking even the faint hum of Jack's guitar. Then Lyra whispered, "Jack, play it." He blinked. "You sure?" "Yes," she said, standing. "They think noise is chaos. Let's show them harmony." Jack grinned, turned on the amplifier, and struck the first chord. The sound exploded through the small ship, deep, bright, full of energy. The Varelian patrol immediately sent warning signals, their scanners reacting wildly to the sonic waves. Lyra closed her eyes and placed her hands on the guitar. Her touch changed the sound, softening it, shaping it, weaving her world's crystal resonance into his human rhythm. The air shimmered. The frequencies collided, then blended, forming a sound no one had ever heard before. Outside, the patrol ships froze. Their systems couldn't read what they were hearing. The frequencies weren't violent. They were alive. The sound waves spread across the void, creating ripples that danced across their sensors. Jack laughed in disbelief. "You're jamming their scanners with music." Lyra smiled faintly. Not jamming, she said. Teaching. Inside the Varelian ships, the crews felt something strange. The sound didn't hurt their ears. It didn't destroy their calm. It filled them with warmth, with emotion, something they had never been allowed to feel so freely. Some even lowered their hands from their control panels, confused and moved. One commander shouted, "Turn it off, shut down the frequencies." But another whispered softly, "Wait, listen." Lyra stepped closer to the comm panel, her voice steady now. "We were taught to fear what we did not understand," she said, her words carrying through the broadcast. "Humans do not use noise to destroy. They use it to feel. You fear emotion, but emotion is not weakness." For a long moment there was only silence. Not peaceful silence, but heavy, thoughtful silence. Then suddenly, the patrol ships powered their engines and turned away, slowly retreating. Jack exhaled in disbelief. "They're leaving." Lyra lowered the guitar, her fingers shaking. "They heard me," she whispered. "Maybe not with their ears, but with something deeper." Jack looked at her with a soft smile. "You just made history, kid. You turned rebellion into a song." Lyra laughed quietly, though tears sparkled at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't want to fight," she said. "I just wanted them to listen." The ship floated quietly again, surrounded by the fading echoes of their creation. Jack walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "They'll remember that sound," he said, "even if they pretend they didn't." Lyra looked out the window at the stars, her stars, and whispered, "Then maybe silence will never be the same again." As they drifted back into deep space, Jack strummed a gentle tune, and Lyra hummed along. The sound that had once divided their worlds was now the heartbeat of something new, a quiet rebellion written in music. The universe had fallen quiet again, but not in the peaceful way Lyra remembered. The silence now felt heavy like the air before a storm. Jack's ship floated in the deep void, its engines running low. The music that once filled its halls had faded to a faint hum, and Lyra could almost feel the silence pressing against her skin. They had escaped the patrols, but the damage from the chase was worse than they thought. Cracks lined the power core, the comms were fried, and half the lights flickered weakly. The only sound left was the low buzz of dying systems and Jack's steady breathing as he worked. Lyra sat beside him, watching. "Can we fix it?" she asked softly. Jack sighed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We can patch it, maybe. But the power core's drained. If we don't restart it soon, we'll lose oxygen and heat." Lyra looked down, her fingers brushing the silent guitar resting on her lap. The strings were still. For the first time since she had met Jack, she couldn't hear any rhythm. No hum, no vibration, no beat. Just emptiness. She had grown up worshipping silence, believing it was the purest form of life. But now, surrounded by it, she realized something terrifying. Silence wasn't peace. It was death slowly taking shape. Jack tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. "Funny, huh? All that noise and now this. Guess the universe wants us to take a break." Lyra smiled faintly, though her heart ached. "You don't like silence either, do you?" He leaned back, eyes on the dark ceiling. "Silence reminds me of war. You know what's the worst part about space battles? It's not the fighting. It's the quiet afterward. No sound, no voices, just the weight of what's gone." Lyra looked at him for a long time. "Maybe silence is what's left when hope stops breathing," she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He just stared at the stars. Hours passed. The temperature dropped. Their breath fogged in the cold air. Lyra curled her arms around herself, shivering. She could hear her own heartbeat slowing, each thump weaker than the last. Then something strange happened. She felt a vibration, faint but real. Her own voice, humming without thought. It started as a whisper, a trembling tone that rose softly into the cold air. Jack turned to her, surprised. "Lyra?" "I can't sit here and die quietly," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "I won't." The hum grew louder, deeper. The crystals embedded in her skin began to glow faintly, reacting to her voice. She closed her eyes and let the sound rise. It wasn't music, not yet, but it carried something more powerful than melody. It carried life. Jack grabbed his broken guitar and sat beside her. "If we're doing this, let's do it together," he said. He strummed gently, The sound weak at first, but her hum lifted it. Together they built a fragile rhythm, one note at a time. The ship's systems flickered. The power sensors twitched, responding to the frequencies. Lyra gasped. "It's working," she said. Jack stared in disbelief. The combined resonance between her crystal tone and his guitar strings created energy waves. The sound wasn't just art anymore, it was fuel. The ship began to hum again, lights glowing brighter with every note. Lyra kept singing, her voice steady despite the pain in her throat. The guitar strings vibrated faster, glowing faintly red. The air felt alive again. The sound filled the cabin, shaking the walls like a heartbeat reborn. Jack laughed, his eyes wide. "You're literally singing us back to life." Lyra smiled through her tears. "Noise isn't chaos," she said softly. "It's creation." For nearly an hour they played together, their bodies weak, but their spirits burning bright. The ship's main power finally rebooted, and warm air returned to the cabin. The hum of life support systems joined their rhythm like an unseen orchestra. When they finally stopped, breathless and trembling, the ship was alive again. The silence had been defeated, not by technology but by the will to be heard. Jack leaned against the wall, smiling weakly. "Remind me never to underestimate your voice again." Lyra looked at the stars through the small window, her glow fading back to normal. "When I was a child," she said, "I thought silence was sacred. Now I think it's only sacred when we choose it, not when it's forced upon us." Jack nodded slowly. "Guess every world has to learn that someday." They sat quietly, but this time the silence wasn't empty. It was gentle, alive with the echo of what they'd created. Then the radio crackled suddenly. A faint signal came through, their song, distorted but recognizable. Someone somewhere had recorded it, and now it was spreading across the stars. Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes wide. "They're listening," she whispered. Jack grinned. "Good," he said, picking up his guitar again. "Let's give them something worth listening to." The transmission shouldn't have traveled that far, at least not through normal channels. Yet there it was, echoing through deep space, caught and repeated by stray satellites and forgotten comms relays. The melody that Lyra and Jack created in desperation had escaped the ship and now drifted across systems like a living whisper. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was a signal of life, a story written in rhythm, a bridge between silence and chaos. Jack sat in the cockpit, headphones on, his fingers hovering over the control board as he replayed the signal. "That's us," he said quietly, disbelief in his voice. "Someone's bouncing it back from the trade routes." Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly. "They're hearing it," she said, "and they're not turning it off." The recording was different now, stretched and warped by its long journey. But the heart of it was still there. The guitar's raw thunder mixed with her crystalline resonance, forming a harmony that no single species could have made. Jack leaned back and smiled faintly. Guess the universe likes a good song after all, but not everyone liked it. Within hours, messages flooded the open frequencies. Some were human miners laughing and cheering, replaying the signal while they worked. Others were Varelian scientists, alarmed and confused by what they called a resonance anomaly of emotional contagion. The song didn't just travel, it changed people. It stirred feelings they couldn't name. Lyra's mother, high in the Varelian council chambers, heard it too. She froze as the forbidden frequencies touched her heart, awakening memories she had buried for years. For the first time, she questioned whether silence was truly holy, or just comfortable. Meanwhile, Jack's old contacts on the human trade channels sent warnings. "Turn it off, Jack," one said through a static-filled message. "The corporations think it's a weapon. Both sides are panicking." Jack looked at Lyra grimly. "They want to claim it. Your people want to destroy it, and mine want to own it." Lyra's gaze hardened. "It doesn't belong to anyone," she said. "It belongs to those who can feel it." The ship drifted through an asteroid field while the signal grew stronger, feeding on energy it shouldn't have had. It was as if the song itself refused to die. Lyra adjusted the controls and whispered, "What if we send it on purpose, not just as an accident?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "You mean broadcast it?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling but brave. "To everyone, every planet, every ship. Let them hear what two souls can make when they stop fearing each other." Jack smiled slowly. You're turning into quite the rebel musician. They worked for hours, rerouting power through the ship's main dish, amplifying the resonance. When the last wire was sealed and the console flickered alive, Lyra took a deep breath. Are you ready? Jack strummed once, a deep, steady note that vibrated through the hull. Born ready. The ship's dish lit up like a miniature sun, releasing a shockwave of sound and color. The song erupted across frequencies, piercing the silence of hundreds of worlds. On mining colonies, workers stopped and stared as their speakers came alive with the strange melody. In royal halls, diplomats froze mid-speech as the sound filled the air. Children on cargo ships laughed and danced to its rhythm. Across thousands of systems, beings who had never agreed on anything found themselves listening to the same song. No one could fully describe what they felt. Some said it was hope. Others said it was love. A few called it chaos, but even they couldn't turn it off. Lyra stood by the window, watching the energy waves dance across the void. They're hearing us, she whispered. All of them, Jack nodded. You've just made the galaxy stop arguing for 3 minutes. That's a miracle. But miracles never came without consequence. The next message came from both governments, human and Varelian. They were furious. The song was now considered a joint interspecies threat. Armadas were mobilizing to intercept the source of the transmission. They didn't understand it, so they feared it. Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes bright but calm. We can't stop now. If we let them silence it, everything we've done will fade away. Jack tightened his gloves, staring at the radar. Then we don't stop, he said. But if they catch us, we'll need to make sure the song can't die. Lyra nodded. Then let's make it eternal. They set the final sequence, a timed relay that would scatter the song across countless frequencies, embedding it into the noise of space itself. No one could ever fully erase it. When Jack hit the final switch, the ship trembled with power. The lights flared, the engines roared, and the melody rose again, louder, freer, alive. It burst from their tiny ship like a heartbeat that reached every corner of the galaxy. As the final note echoed, Lyra placed her hand on the window. We didn't start a war, she said softly. We started a rhythm. Jack looked at her, smiling through exhaustion. And you, Lyra, just gave the stars a song they'll never forget. The ship drifted onward. Small and fragile, but behind it trailed an invisible wake of sound. A melody heard by billions, echoing forever in the quiet of space. The galaxy wasn't the same anymore. Across thousands of systems, no one could escape the song. It played through static-filled radios, echoed in repair bays, and hummed in children's dreams. No one knew its source, but everyone felt its meaning, a strange peace, a shared heartbeat. Some called it a miracle, others called it rebellion. But for Jack and Lyra, it was just their truth. They floated in orbit above a dying moon, their ship scarred and low on fuel. The engines whined weakly, the panels cracked, and the once bright lights now flickered in exhaustion. Still, the air inside was warm, filled with the hum of the last few guitar strings and the soft glow of Lyra's crystal veins. Jack sat by the control board, head bowed. We did it, he murmured. Every fleet's chasing ghosts now. They can't find the source because we became the signal. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the soft light of distant stars. But they will keep trying, she said. They will fight to claim it, to silence it. Humans and Varelians both, Jack nodded slowly. Then maybe we should give them one last performance. Something they can't erase. Something that says, this is what we are. Lyra tilted her head. A final song? He grinned. A goodbye concert for the galaxy. They found the perfect place in an old asteroid station once used for miners' festivals. Abandoned now, it still had a massive open deck facing the stars. Broken lights hung from its rails, and the floor was littered with ancient speakers and hollow drums. It looked forgotten, yet somehow waiting for them. Jack landed the ship with a shaky thud. When the hatch opened, cold starlight poured in. Lyra stepped out first, her cloak fluttering in the vacuum breeze, her crystal skin glowing faintly blue. She looked around, eyes wide. It feels like a stage. Jack carried his guitar, slinging it over his shoulder. Then let's give the stars a show. They set up the old transmitters, rewired the sound projectors, and linked everything to the ship's amplifier. It took hours, but finally the system pulsed with power again. Lyra stood at the edge of the platform, looking out into the endless dark. Do you think anyone's still listening? She asked quietly. Jack strummed a single note. It echoed like thunder in the emptiness. They never stopped. And then together they began. Lyra lifted her voice first, pure, haunting, echoing across the deck. It wasn't a language. It was emotion turned into sound. Her resonance filled the air, shimmering through the old metal walls, bouncing off the dust and light. Jack joined in with his guitar, his chords deep and steady like the heartbeat of a planet. The song rose higher, faster, human chaos and alien order weaving together until they were one. The entire station vibrated with their rhythm. Across the void, long-range scanners picked up the frequency. Ships from both sides turned their receivers toward it. In Varelian cities, the towers of glass began to hum along with her tone. On Earth, crowded bars and dusty mining ships erupted in applause as the same melody reached their speakers. No one could explain it, but no one dared to turn it off. Jack looked at Lyra as they played, his voice rough with emotion. "You were right," he said between chords. "Silence isn't peace. It's just waiting for someone brave enough to fill it." Lyra smiled through her tears. "And noise isn't chaos," she whispered. "It's life trying to be heard." The music swelled until even the air shimmered. Stars seemed to flicker in time with their rhythm. Then, one by one, the speakers started to overload. The old station couldn't handle the power. Sparks flew, circuits burst, but neither of them stopped. Jack strummed harder. Lyra's voice rose higher. It wasn't just a song now, it was defiance. It was love. It was freedom. "Keep playing," Lyra shouted over the roar. Jack laughed. "You got it." Their final note ripped through the void, a sound so powerful it split through comms channels, crossed military frequencies, and echoed in the neural fields of listening species. It wasn't just heard, it was felt. And then, silence. The explosion was small but bright, a flash that faded gently among the stars. The asteroid fell quiet again, but across the galaxy the signal remained. Every receiver, every ship, every world still carried an echo, a piece of that final performance. On Earth, a child tapped a rhythm on the floor, humming a tune she didn't know. On Varelia, a council member stood before her people and whispered, "Listen," and in the static of 1,000 comms, two faint voices still lingered, one human, one alien, laughing together in harmony. Jack and Lyra were gone, but their sound never faded. It became part of the cosmic noise, the pulse of stars, the whisper of light, the heartbeat of connection. And somewhere, deep in the endless silence of space, the galaxy learned that even noise, when born from love, could make the universe beautiful.